it has been my experience in the American evangelical tradition that there's a lot more burden of decision making and personal responsibility on this young person who is coming up in a faith, right? And trying to figure out, where do we belong? Who are we listening to? Especially I've seen this in kids who have changed churches or who have like moved kind of religious communities. They're like, it used to be this way and now it's this way, and I don't know what that means. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and again, this burden of individual decision making placed onto the children, which what a bummer. It ought to be the community's responsibility for bringing up a child into this openness and this space of wondering about who God is and how God has made them and their place in the world. And so I think that's where I hopefully lean in my particular ministry work, that we can be a committed community. I am not a mother, I'm child free and unpartnered, but I love being an auntie as well. And so thinking about the other adults that are involved in our child's life. And so to come back to what Rabbi Esther was saying about adults with religious trauma, you don't have to be the only one who's talking to your kid about tradition or culture or faith or God. Like, get your friends, get your aunties and your uncles, like lean on the community. And they don't have to be church people or synagogue people or like any other kind of faith people. They can be your neighbors. They can be the parents you meet on the playground, and like creating these spaces where there are other folks who are offering some meaningful guidance into these big questions, especially when there's a history of religious trauma. It doesn't all have to come down as a burden of parents, right? But we hope there's this shared burden of responsibility in caring for our children.
You know, in our work at Springtide, that's one of the things that we remind parents and trusted adults about. We have kind of this magic number. If a kid has 5 trusted adults at least in their lives, then they have, you know, much less incident of mental health challenges, especially, but just have a greater sense of belonging. We tell them, mom and dad, that doesn't just have to be you. The onus does not fall on you here to make sure that all of these things fall into place. Absolutely. Reverend Natalie, did you have something you wanted to add on this?
I was just thinking, you know, listening to you all talk about this. In the book and in the movie, Margaret is given the choice, like she'll choose this later sort of thing, which is a thing that they are doing everywhere in her life, right? But this is the only place where she doesn't have information. And I just find that so interesting that she decides not to wear socks and her mom gives her information about, hey, so you can make this choice, but here's probably what might happen. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But when it comes to this thing, you know, when we're talking about like the trauma response inside of you that doesn't let you like think through what actually might be helpful in a situation, or the religious adverse person who is just being more casual about it, what then does the child have to reconcile with, you know? And so Margaret is left to figure it out on her own without any guidelines at all, right? So she like goes to synagogue and just is like, okay, well, what are we doing? You know, her grandmother's like, it's fine, you're fine. And then she goes to church with her friend for Easter, and it's all, you know, it's all the same kind of no information, just exposure without context space, that I think you all have really named here. And I wanted to just add that little piece about how there are other places where community was super important, where context was very key, where, you know, they're actively building this for Margaret, but in this one place because of their own stuff, right? She's kind of left out to her own devices and left out to the wolves ultimately around it.